Hey everybody, I'm Christine Barr, and this is Today Over Tea, where we have real conversations about things that matter. I'm a dancer, businesswoman, traveler, and host. And today we're creating an open-minded space with hopes of spreading awareness and education through similar experiences. I'm going to introduce you to some of the most passionate and knowledgeable people in my life. 2020 is the time to own who you are, reach your highest potential, and just love your life. Because let's face it, we're all going through something, but it's time to evolve as a society. We need to spread more kindness and love for each other and this planet. So let's start the conversation. It's good energy because Whitney is here. Whitney is here. We haven't seen each other in like almost 3 months, probably.
Yeah.
We've been, all social distancing as we should. Mm-hmm. And we finally decided it was time to discuss some of these topics. Whitney has been on the podcast before with another one of my friends, Andre, and we were discussing fear, acceptance, joy, kind of finding your purpose and happiness in life, which was amazing. It was one of my favorite episodes, so we made it episode number 1. So go back and check that out because it's an awesome episode. But we wanted to follow up with so much of what Whitney does in her professional life, and I feel like you just needed your own episode.
Thank you.
It was time. It was time. And so we're back. We're ready to spill all the tea. We want to dig deeper into more of the mental health side that I don't think we really got to talk about too much last time, because that is really more what you focus on. Mm-hmm. And it's so relevant in today, like in what is happening with the pandemic, with Black Lives Matter, with everything that's going on. Mental health is the overall of kind of what's, the glue of all of this stuff. Whether we're holding it together or we're not.
Right.
So I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this topic because practicing important mental fitness to keep a good mental
fitness.
health.
I love that.
I just think we have to look at it more in that way, like preventative care. Instead of waiting for things to hit rock bottom, we have to take a more holistic approach to taking care of ourselves right now. Yeah. And with the really sad things that are going on in the world, we can't just distract ourselves and pretend like they don't exist. While distraction temporarily might be an okay thing to step back, or limit setting is very important right now with social media. But it's all about finding that healthy boundary and finding out what can you specifically do in order to take good care of yourself and take, responsibility for your own mental health, and also be supportive for your friends who are suffering right now.
What would you say to people like that who are feeling like they have to be informed in a sense, but at the same time, it's making them anxious to watch all of this? Like, I couldn't watch certain videos and things that people were passing around. I had to scroll through because that just took my entire energy of my day. I was being productive, and then I sit on social media for 5 minutes, which is most people. And then it just completely turns them into, oh no, the world is over, this is terrible, I feel for these people, because we do, we're all human. What would you say to people like that?
All right, so it is a lot. Yeah. And I would say it is completely okay to turn off your Facebook and Instagram. Yeah. Take a step back from it for a while. To stay informed, you can tune into things like NPR. They're a pretty credible source.
Okay.
But be careful about where you do get your news, because whether it's coronavirus or whether it's about the divisiveness between our country right now.
Politics.
Yeah, I was going to say politics. Yeah. It's important to be aware of certain motivations behind the people who are filtering and flooding our social media with political posts.
Right.
And making some things that would normally be more of a positive emotion, making them about a controversy. Or
just almost switching the narrative.
Exactly.
What are we really discussing, and those things are making us anxious, but is that even the problem at hand?
Right. What
Probably
is the
not.
bottom line? And
right.
what is you look at who is benefiting from this.
Totally.
And I do get emotional when I see the videos of people being hurt or people being victimized.
Oh, totally.
And
yeah.
I am very passionate about being a social justice advocate.
Absolutely.
And especially as my role as a human being and as a mental health professional, more solution focused is more important. And when your friends talk to you about their pain, acknowledge their pain. And let them know that they're not alone.
Right.
And that you support them. And
which is good in what you do in everything, as far as like how you help your patients, right? Is you address everything that comes in to you is valid, right? Because everyone's feelings are valid. And so the way that they come into you and whatever it is that they say, how do you handle the types of situations where you're affected too, right? Because you know what I mean?
So that does happen. It's called transference.
Okay.
And that's why it's really important for mental health professionals to also get counseling, to do their own therapy, and to do their own reflections. And in some cases, to let clients know if you are being affected by transference. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then it can affect your patients.
Of course.
And that's the last thing.
Yeah, because you're not a robot. You're feeling just,
right.
Probably what they're feeling. Especially now, they're not just coming to you and saying, well, I just got divorced and this is my problem. Or I lost a loved one or whatever. And you can help them because you're not emotionally attached to their situation.
Right.
But now, the things that they're probably coming to you for are things that are affecting you just as much as they're affecting them.
Just like, for example, Christine, like the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes.
I have my own fears. I have my own loved ones who are susceptible. I have my own concerns for my health and protecting that.
Yes.
And my own responsibilities and concerns for protecting my patients.
Right.
And so I do have to check my own fears, my own biases, and I do have to stay informed. And I limit even as someone that stays informed, I do limit the amount of social media and news that I take in daily. I'll check it in the morning or in the evening, but I won't let myself be too consumed by it.
Right.
Because there is a fine line, and it is something that comes down to boundaries and limit setting so that you don't give yourself too much anxiety and fear.
Well, I think the way most people talk about it is when we discuss like scrolling through Instagram and seeing, so-and-so that has, perfect makeup and perfect skin, and you're just seeing them, and all of a sudden you feel bad about how you look, and you're not that skinny, and you're not this, and you're not that. And that's just kind of like the base layer of why social media can be very destructive to our mental health. But now, because of what has happened in the world, it's affecting every single person between the pandemic and, of course, everything with Black Lives Matter. It's taken on a whole new level of, like, when people say, if you don't like what I'm writing, unfriend me, or unfollow me. I mean, thank goodness for the unfollow button on Facebook, because it's so true. Like, you need to fill your feed with what you want to see. And if that's a bunch of Facebook groups of positive quotes just to get you through the day, then do it. If you can't stay off of Facebook, redirect your feed to make it look like what you need. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so that comes down to being selective with the type of interactions you have.
Sure.
And for me, there are times when I will speak up and I will engage in a conversation. But what I've learned for myself is that if I'm feeling really strongly disturbed by a comment someone made on my specific post, or, someone that I care about is sharing things that seem like misinformation, instead of starting a Facebook war, I will reach out to that person directly and in a more personal way, like a call or a text message to say, hey, can we chat later?
Right.
And talk to them openly about my feelings, because that has been more fruitful for me.
Well, much more effective and productive.
Yeah,
right?
It's not very often that people will change their minds from a Facebook comment
True.
or post. You might feel better, and sometimes I'll share things just so that other people that I care about who are affected by this know they're not alone and know that I do care.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm personally choosing not to be silent, but at the same time, I'm also not constantly posting things every time I read something. I'm just more reaching out to my friends individually and checking on them and starting conversations with other people about voting and about policy and about focusing on solutions and empowerment. Yeah, what can we do and how can we inform ourselves so that we don't continue this problem?
Totally.
So bringing it back to the reason...
Which makes more sense why she's here, right? Because it's exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast. Is I feel like any topic of conversation can have some sort of growth moment or a learning experience or a way to move forward or a solution or whatever, where we can learn from each other and then share that with an audience on a bigger scale.
I'm taking an opportunity to call somebody. A lot of times we get afraid of a live phone call, because people, especially the newer generation, they're so used to editing their thoughts before they post it or text. But a live phone call is really nice, and you can do Facebook Live.
That's it.
My favorite thing to do is to FaceTime with my nieces. Yeah. And my brothers.
Zoom is a big thing now.
Google Hangouts, and you can create some
Yeah.
passwords to try to protect your privacy. But you know, there are more ways to connect in a more personal way versus just a comment.
Right.
So I'll encourage that. And also I'll encourage a more holistic, mindful approach to living, especially for people who are stuck at home right now.
Those are all words I love to hear.
So whenever I do therapy or whenever I give therapy, I don't just do talk therapy.
Okay.
In addition to the interventions we do in the office, I'll encourage someone to do journal reflections, to do coping skills. So whether for some people like me, dancing is a coping skill, journaling is a coping skill because it lets me get all of my thoughts out on paper, become aware of what's bubbling inside of me, and then figure out what do I want to do about these feelings and thoughts.
Almost like
changes need to happen.
Right, but if you're triggered, like, because it's so great to have a session and you're like, you feel so good or you're having a good day. But I think the thing is that you're teaching people how to use techniques on the days that they're not feeling great. And how do I, when I'm triggered, when I'm upset, when I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, those are the days that I really need these journaling techniques, these, you know, breathing exercises, those kinds of things to calm myself down. You know what I mean? So that then I can remember, oh, tomorrow can be a good day.
Right.
Right?
And that brings me to one of the things I'm really excited to talk to you about, because there is a new type of therapy that I'm really passionate about because it is very effective for long-term healing. Okay.
Amazing.
And
heard it here first.
So I'm really excited to share it with you. The creator, the author is Dr. Jay Norix, and he is a local therapist. And he even has his own YouTube channel. I highly encourage you to check him out because he'll explain it to you more in depth in the scientific ways that it actually heals parts of the midbrain.
And how long has this been going on? Or has been in effect?
I'm not sure when he released his first book, but he's been doing it for years.
Okay.
And I just recently, in the last 2 years, have become trained in it and started using it with my patients. So,
and results are good.
Results are very good. I've had it done on myself. I've done it for my patients as well.
Very cool.
So to give you a little Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, give us a little taste.
Because I want you to understand what part psychology is.
Sure.
So everything that we experience today is experienced through a filter or a lens of our past. And when we have traumatic memories, whether it is from a really traumatic experience or just how we interpreted that experience when we were young, gives us a bias and gives us a lens about the world around us, about our place in the world, and how we relate to that world, how we respond to it.
Sure.
So every powerful emotion. So for example, post-traumatic stress disorder or severe anger problems, which a lot of Americans have, and also anxiety. A lot of people have those three problems at some point in their life.
Sure.
On some different varying level.
Yeah.
But in order to actually heal those symptoms, you have to get to the root of the cause. And the way that I would work with a patient is they'll come in to see me, and after we do their assessment, I will work with them and ask for what is the main problem they're here for. And you have to define the problem before you can actually come up with a solution.
Totally. Hence the root.
All right. So we try to pinpoint the problem. And
yeah.
if they say, my problem is anger, I find myself lashing out at people I love, or, saying harsh, cruel things, or some people are more physical, or they break things or hurt other people. And they let their emotions run them, and they don't have control. So we'll work on healing that angry part of them.
Right, because why is that happening in the first place?
Right.
They're coming to you already knowing that that's an issue.
Right.
Because I know some people that don't know that that's a problem. You can bring that to their attention, and then they're like, oh, no, that's not what I do. And I feel like that's even worse because they're in denial of what's actually happening versus I think the first step is just addressing this is an issue, and I need to fix it.
Exactly.
I think that's the hardest part for people, especially in today's world, because everything comes with so much shame of like, well, you can't be this and you can't be that, and you shouldn't be yelling at people, and you shouldn't be this, and it's like, don't worry about what other people are saying. Just focus on what is that is ailing you and what is happening. Address that, and then, like you said, then we go to the root of the issue and all of that to get rid of it.
Yeah, so exactly. So as I was saying, people get more hung up on the symptoms that are coming at the behaviors instead of healing the actual pain.
Sure.
And so when you can pinpoint that pain, then you have a chance at neutralizing it. But the process is that, it's having the courage, first of all, to start, to come in is a huge step.
Totally.
But once I get someone in front of me, and we build that trust, and they understand how confidentiality works with, the limitations of, legal limitations of making sure that there's no one's life in danger.
Sure.
And that no one's abused. Within that, there is an exception, but otherwise our conversations are confidential. That's they know that they're not going to be shamed. Yeah. They're not going to be ridiculed or judged for the way that they've behaved. Then they can start to feel safe, and then whenever they're willing to be honest with themselves. They don't even have to disclose to me as deeply in part psychology as they have to be honest with themselves.
Right.
So I will start with, okay, we've pinpointed the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go with just the example of anger. So anger is the problem.
Right.
And I will ask the patient, okay, so can you give me... I ask them to use their imagination because we take a back door to access the parts of their memory. It's kind of like a verbal...
Yeah.
It's a memory reconsolidation process. So they have to envision their anger. Where do they feel that sensation in their body? So they find the part that carries the anger.
Right.
So maybe that part of them that carries the anger starts in their stomach. They feel in their stomach, or their face gets hot and red, or their hands get sweaty.
Very energetic, it sounds like.
It's because you're activating, you are triggering, in a sense, that anger. And you say, okay, ask that anger in your stomach.
Yeah. To
give us a picture of itself. And whether it's maybe they see the color red, or maybe they see themselves, or maybe the anger presents itself as a different... like a monster.
Right, you almost have to make it tangible in order to eliminate it. Because then when it's a feeling, we don't quite know.
Yeah, and I want to revise some framing.
Okay.
So instead of eliminating it, you are neutralizing it. So how the process works is once that part gives you a picture, Don't be embarrassed about, oh, I pictured a monster. No, your brain is right. Your brain knows.
Yeah.
Trust your instinct. And then that memory, then you will ask it to describe what is its earliest disturbing memory of any kind. Because maybe it won't be an angry memory. Maybe it'll be a sad memory or an abandoned or rejected or ridiculed memory.
Sure.
And so you take a collection and then you go by one is one of the methods, and you ask that part to you ask the patient to speak to the part directly, whether in their head silently or out loud if it helps them to visualize it.
Right.
And say, can I have permission to heal this broken part of you? Whether it's, a memory when you were 5 and one of your parents left and you're afraid of them never coming back, or whether it's you witnessed or experienced abuse, whatever that memory is, it's carrying a pain
that's now affecting.
That is affecting you for the rest of your life if you don't know how to release that pain. And so once you get consent from the part of you that is carrying that, maybe using anger as a protective source to protect you from vulnerability, protect you from re-injury.
It's a defense mechanism.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have to get consent from the part, and that can be complicated, but once you get permission, then you take that younger part of you, maybe the 5-year-old part, or whatever age you were when that hurt occurred, and you take it to neutralize it in like a waterfall. But before you can actually neutralize that pain, you have to activate the midbrain by asking it, how great is your pain on a scale of 0 to 10? And then that activates the midbrain and makes it open to rewiring. And then you take it through a healing process using fire, water, wind, or whatever to
the elements,
wash out and neutralize that pain all the way down to a 0.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, you have to keep your memories, you have to keep yourself neutral. And once you change it and you get it down to a 0, you tell the child, part of you, okay, you can go play, give it a task to do, and say thank you for your help. And then you'll find that if you can keep yourself neutral for the next several hours, I'll have to double check Dr. J's standards, but I tell my patients 6 hours just to be safe.
Yeah.
Then the next day, when you come up with the memory, you still have the awareness that the memory happened, but you feel neutralized towards it. And so you don't carry that trauma, that fear, that anger for that specific memory. And every time you heal one of those memories, it takes away that triggering response within you.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I strongly believe in it. I've experienced it. I've seen success in my patients, and
that's amazing.
It
just sounds so, like, I'm almost speechless because it just the way you were describing it, going through the process, just sounds so, I mean, the word is therapeutic, but it just sounds so peaceful. It you know what I mean? It just sounds very, very, like, it doesn't give me anxiety to think about, because that can be a very stressful process, to go through a memory, an old thing, and try to find how to fix that and how to move forward, and you have to relive it, and all of that just sounds very stressful. But the way you were describing it just sounded very peaceful and very like a conversation that we're having, not an argument, you know?
Then you can really free yourself from that pain and the way that it has altered your life and altered your connections and your relationships and your self-love.
Oh, totally. Totally. I want to jump back to a little bit at the beginning, what you were saying, because I'm a huge advocate of this, is preventative. Because we've talked a little bit about it with my holistic medicine worker on the body side, where we talk about taking supplements and probiotics, and even, you know, a friend of mine who does meditation, and he has, you know, does all of these like circulation things. It's all having to do with, they're already healthy, but the idea is that they're keeping themselves healthy, right?
Yes.
But what we don't realize is we have to do the same thing with our mental health. right? Because we're thinking, oh, everything's just fine, and we just kind of like push it, but we don't realize that every single day we should be doing some sort of time alone, meditation, breathing, something that, because that builds up after days and weeks and months, that then it's like not working out, right? It becomes I love how you said, what did you call it? A mental fitness?
Yeah, mental fitness.
That was such a cool term I've not heard before.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't claim credit for it. I feel like I've heard it somewhere, but
I'm good with it.
I feel like it's important to look at mental health as a preventative measure. You don't wait to go to the doctor until something falls off. You take care of your body, and
your mind is.
You have to brush your teeth every day. You have to take care of your mind every day. So if something is emotionally eating at you, talk to someone you trust about it.
Yeah.
Journal about it. Meditate. I highly recommend therapy because...
But you were saying before that a lot of people are scared to go to therapy. Why?
They're scared to pursue therapy because they think that it's going to be a constant source of pain. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel as being able to release the pain and heal it.
Right.
And also, on top of the fear of change and the fear of making ourselves vulnerable, we have this belief that something is wrong with us. Because society creates this negative stigma that if you go to see a therapist, that there's something wrong with you. But in reality...
That's a good point.
In reality, people who go to therapy and make themselves more aware of their pain and more open to healing, they're more healthy than the people who keep just trying to tough it out and think that they don't need anybody else's help.
Right.
So I strongly encourage
I think a lot of those people
exploring.
Think they know that they need the help or they want something like a release, but I think that's the thing. There's the shame, the stigma, they can't get past what are people gonna think about me going to therapy or saying, all of these things. And I feel, and you can tell me if you feel the same way, I feel like the world is going into, is wanting to go into as well a place of enlightenment where we're all discussing. That's why mental health is becoming so much more on the forefront of what we discuss and how we can't, just completely disregard people's, well, I have a mental illness, right? That used to be something that people would say, and they wouldn't say because they knew that they weren't going to be taken seriously. And now...
Or they were afraid of judgment or criticism.
Totally. That unless you're physically, something's wrong with you, you're fine, right? And I think finally we're discussing mental health on a real level, on a changing level that is allowing people to speak out, especially people who have high platforms and, influencers and public figures that are discussing, I've gone through this. I have postpartum depression after pregnancy. I have, all of these things.
Because we realize we're not alone.
Right.
And that's empowering. And I think it's important to share that experience in a way that you feel is right for you, meaning that you talk to people that you do trust.
Yeah.
And you build a circle of people that you do feel like you can openly express your feelings and thoughts about what's going on. You don't have to post everything on social media unless that is your network and that is how you connect. But build a genuine connection where you can feel safe to be yourself, express your feelings, and be in tune with your thoughts. I like meditation as well.
Yes.
Meditation meaning... Not that I try to kick all the thoughts out of my head, but I just try to sit with my feelings in the morning.
That's the hardest part for me, is clearing my head. But I've recently got into meditation and just tried to find my version of it that helps me, because I need to calm my brain a lot. I'm just always thinking about something, and that's getting me into this anxious state because there's either not enough time to do all the things I need to do, or I'm stressed about something. And by allowing your brain to be clear for even 5 minutes of the day is so powerful and has so many long-lasting effects that I think people don't realize because they're thinking, oh, well, what can 5 minutes do?
It can do a lot because when we clear our mind and we think about what we feel, what are our priorities for that day, then we give ourselves permission to focus on those priorities without feeling guilty.
Right.
And decide what can we do to control things today in this moment. Mm-hmm. And then we just take it day by day.
That's it. What the phrase I'm living by right now is something I heard from Oprah that said, which I love, I quote her all the time, but I've been saying, what is the next right step? And that's been applying to me, and not only to me, but to people that have asked for my opinion, or I've had discussions with friends and family of, their life issues, and it gets so overwhelming and so snowball effect of, especially with what's happening right now. So many things are unknown, the fear of the unknown, the future, and all these things. And
the things that we worry about because we can't control them.
Totally, exactly. And so what's happening is that instead of thinking about 6 months down the road, or what's going to happen in 5 years, or whatever, just think about what's the next right step. And then once you've accomplished that, what's the next right step? And it can be as simple as, I want a new piece of furniture in my house, and I'm determined to find the best one online for the best price.
Right.
And that seems so unimportant, right? Because it's like, well, but
it depends. But
right.
Yeah. It seems small scale.
It seems small scale, but I believe in the small little things that add up to become the big things. And I think that's a lot more manageable, especially just mentally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really to take one thing at a time.
To do that and to create an environment both physically around you and also mentally in your mind, like you said about choosing to read positive posts.
Right.
To have positive things in your feed and consume positive things.
Right.
We can get back into reading books. So we can listen to guided meditation, which I've found really, really helpful.
Yeah. Where do you find, I was going to ask you that too, where do you find some of your meditations? Because I tend to just kind of go to YouTube and just browse around. I have people that send me links. But
that's what I've done. Sometimes I'll look for mindfulness articles, psychology. I look for .org, things like that. But for a fun experiment I recently did was the 21 Days of Abundance. It was a challenge.
I saw that going around. I haven't done it yet.
Oh my God,
but I'm going
I got
to.
Chills because
I'm going to.
Instead of
it's Deepak Chopra, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad you pronounced it for me.
I love. So I just read his book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. Like mind blowing and life changing for me because it was so simple. I highly recommend it, especially if you've done his abundance challenge, which I'm. Yeah. So we're just gonna kind of flip flop.
So next time that I do it, I'm going to reach out to you because I participated in a group and part of the challenge was leading your own. And
love that.
Reaching out to other people, you kind of put yourself vulnerable to them, saying what? Because not everyone is into meditation.
Sure.
But it personally empowered me to prioritize and gave me permission to make space to just journal and focus on my needs. And as a therapist, you really got to do that now more than ever.
Totally. And I also want to put a little addition to journaling because I have been trying to, when I was younger, I journaled a lot, but I just felt like it was almost like someone I could talk to, it was like a friend, my journal. Yeah. But and I feel like that's very much a young girl thing. But as I've gotten older, journaling has become a part of the mental health that you're talking about, to get your thoughts out, to keep positiveness going in your life and all these things. But it's been harder for me because it almost feels like a task because now I have so many other responsibilities as an adult. So it's a time consuming. I'm like, I forgot to journal today. But the idea is not to do it because it's on your list. It's to do it because it's supposed to be a release. It's almost, instead of that 5 minutes of meditation, maybe you 5-minute journal or whatever.
Yeah, and I can relate to you because I am not, especially before this challenge, I would look at journaling with the same thing. I'm like, I have so much to do today.
I know.
I don't want to focus energy
on sometimes you don't know what to say. But I will say that what has helped me is I have, and you kind of brought this to the forefront of me a little bit when we did episode 1, which was so interesting, but I think it was like, duh, it was right in front of my face. It was crazy, is audio journal. And we were sitting on the camera and you're like, this is your version of journaling right now.
Blogging, getting your feelings and ideas out.
Because I told you, this has been so therapeutic for me. And you're like, well, that's it. This is your journal. And I didn't even think about that, because for me, being in front of a camera always means creating content that's going to be public, right?
Right, which does have an impact. If you know your journal's going to be read by other people,
oh, totally,
you're not going to share every, thought and feeling you have publicly, but you still...
We have a voice memo on our phone. We have anything that we want to do. We can create audio, like
some of my patients love painting and drawing, and so I'll have them paint their feelings or draw their feelings, and sand tray therapy. I also do that, and everything's symbolic. It's about the meaning and value that it represents for you.
Well, totally, and I think that's the thing is that don't think that journaling has to work for you.
Yeah.
Or meditation has to work for you. Meditation is a lot more of a broad genre. Yeah. And I think everybody has their way of meditating. Like when Noel meditates, he falls asleep. That's his way of releasing and understanding that he's in a calm state. For me, I have to close my eyes, I have to be in a certain... Some people, they meditate just staring into the abyss or whatever.
Yeah.
So meditation can be your own version of it. But I think for
like
journaling...
going for a walk in nature or stretching or...
Totally. But I think that's the thing is that when it comes to your mental health, what I've learned over the past 5 years, but specifically the work I've done in the last 6 months, is finding the version of the broader genre of what society has given and find the nugget in there that works just for you.
Amen to that.
And that is, that is just... You have to do some research. It's a lot of time.
Experimental research.
Right.
Because
trial and error.
You won't know if something is effective until you try it.
Totally.
And honestly, in the beginning of my 21 days of abundance meditation challenge, the first 6 days I was like, oh, I get to journal today. But then after the first week, the topics, as I was moving through them and healing little things that I'd kind of run from facing, then I was able to really look forward to it.
Totally.
And having that time every morning or every night.
Yeah, because you start to build a habit.
Helped.
Right?
Yeah, 21 days is what the theory is
to build a
habit building.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think everyone is looking for some kind of a release. And I think all of that can fall under the category of therapy. Right? And I don't want to put it in quotes, but
I also want to, on that note, I just want to touch base and say that a lot of times what we have in our mind and perceive as therapy is that you have to be sitting on a person to person talking, or even telehealth now, which is a really convenient way for people to experiment with therapy because there's that extra protective barrier.
Right.
It doesn't have to be just that typical talk therapy.
Right.
Or
that organized, I think.
Yeah, that type of structure.
That type of structure. I think people think it has to be like I have to make an appointment and I have to sit down and we have to do this whole thing. But therapy can be so many different versions of that, right? Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Looking at reframing your thoughts. And one thing that you can do as preventative, whether you journal, vlog, audio, or just talk to a friend, check your thoughts and see if you're having looping, repetitive thoughts. Because thinking about something and ruminating about it over and over can only create more suffering and pain and anxiety.
Sure.
Look more for a framing of what can I empower myself to do about the situation. If it's something I can control, what can I change? And if it is not something I control, then how can I refocus my energy in a way that's going to help me feel better?
Right.
And it's a little more complicated than that, but a lot of times we get these thinking errors and we get trapped in those. And so another tool that you can look up at home, cognitive behavioral therapy, looking at your thoughts and examining, am I overgeneralizing? Am I catastrophizing things? Am I being unfair to myself? Meaning you look at a thought and you see, what evidence do I have? Become aware of your thoughts. And if you are having a looping thought, or whether you are giving yourself a really negative message about yourself or about the world, you have to look at what evidence do I have that supports this thought, And what evidence do I have that negates it?
Yeah.
Okay. And if the thought does prove to be true, then you look at it from a frame of, like you mentioned earlier, what is the right step, the next right step?
Yeah.
How can I love myself, forgive myself for postponing this thing, or for how I handled it in the past? How can I change little baby steps every day and make it better?
Right.
And that is a more healthy mindset. Think of a growth mindset versus a stuck in time mindset where you're doomed to repeat your mistakes.
But I also think, I love the word you used before, is just self-awareness.
Yes.
I think that is the kind of part of the enlightening, chapter of the world that I'm hoping that the world goes into next, is just everyone becoming more self-aware. Mm-hmm. Because that is something that, as a healthcare professional, you have no choice but to be self-aware. You have to be aware of your actions, your thoughts, everything that's happening in your sessions, your patients as well. Like, there's just this self-awareness that develops as you grow in that profession. As an athlete, as all these different things that, I've done in my life, that I've been blessed to be able to have the quality of self-awareness just pop up all the time.
Because it is a result of your experiences.
Exactly. But I think we underestimate how many people really are that self-aware because they're not taught to look inward.
Or maybe they don't even have the opportunity, because looking at the hierarchy, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't have your basic needs met, or if you're concerned right now about paying your bills because of circumstances, it's hard for you to move up to the next level of love and belonging or self-actualization, self-development.
Right.
Because you're just trying to survive.
That's it. You're in survival mode. I think you nailed it right there. Most people are just living in survival mode.
And that creates post-traumatic stress disorder.
So true.
So it is something that I highly encourage people to be proactive and focus on self-care as much as they can, meaning not just all bubble baths and massages. That's my favorite thing about self-care.
That's a good self-care.
But sometimes healing your pain and just spending quality time with a friend.
Or yourself.
I
think so many people are afraid to be with themselves. You know what I mean?
Because they are sitting alone with their feelings and thoughts.
Right.
That are making them uncomfortable.
Yes, that's very scary. But I think that's necessary, especially in a relationship. Don't lose your identity. Don't lose your sense of self. But also don't be afraid to be by yourself and ask your significant other, hey, can we just create a little bit of space here? This doesn't mean that I don't want you around me, but I just need some time for me.
And then what you're talking about is healthy boundaries.
That's it.
So it's not, so a rigid boundary is where you have up walls and you don't let anyone in. Whether it's fear of vulnerability or just this concept that you have to do everything on your own and that you can't ever accept help or ask for help or let anyone in. So it's kind of like this rigid boundary. Yeah. And then there is the other unhealthy boundary, which is enmeshed, meaning your lives, you don't know where one person ends and the other begins. It feels good sometimes because you're madly in love with the other person. Right. You have that sense of security and strength in one another, but you're codependent. You need to be needed in order to feel that fulfillment. And so
this is my therapy session right now. This is so on target.
Oh, so I'm glad this is helping you.
No,
but
totally.
It's important for all of us, and I work on it too.
Yeah.
But
just the self-awareness of that happening
and knowing that is a psychological thing. You're not alone.
Because that's the thing. You're happy, right? And we're talking about healthy, happy relationships, which is a whole nother segment we can do on building healthy relationships. But that you're happy in your relationship, and then these things develop over time that you don't even realize that, like, I wake up in the morning thinking about him first before I think about myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, hang on. And then some other people will be like, oh, that's so cute, that's so great, you guys are so, good together. And it's like, it is, but at the end of the day, who's thinking about me? Is he thinking about me first before he thinks about himself? Because if so, I guess there can be a balance, but even then, he doesn't know what's good for me. Right. 100%. He may know some, but he doesn't know everything that's good for me. So I feel like I need to focus on myself. Even with him around, I was trying to focus on myself and my own meditation, all these things. And I would be like, oh, well, let's go to the beach together because I feel like you're bored. And it's like, but now I'm not focusing on myself. I'm not doing what I said I was going to do throughout the day because now I've switched my program, my agenda for him. When in reality, he didn't ask me to do that. And that becomes resentful.
Exactly. And exactly what you're describing is one of those things that it
just dominoes so fast.
I think it's awesome that we're talking about this, because I just got through reading a book on boundaries, and a lot of the ideas that we develop, especially under a Christian upbringing, are that you're supposed to serve others first, or you're supposed to take care of others' needs before your own.
Yeah.
And so we get in that mentality and we practice that throughout our lives and don't even realize it. But if you're very self-aware and you're more aware of a deeper message, you have to fill up your own cup before you can fill up others. And a healthy boundary, one of the ones I didn't visually create, is assertive boundaries. A healthy boundary is where it is kind of not enmeshed but not rigid, so you still have your love, your trust, and security. Yes. You still do things for the other and you still consider them, but you also remember to put yourself and put on your safety mask first so you can breathe and take care of you.
That metaphor. I use it all the time. Right? For those who don't know, in the airplane, they always ask you if there's an emergency, put your mask on first, and then help a child or someone who needs your help. Because if you pass out, you're no good to someone else. And that is exactly, that metaphor crosses over in so many aspects of life that people forget. And we say that, and that metaphor is so visual because people are on an airplane all the time, so they get it. And they're like, yeah, exactly. And it makes so much sense to them. It's clear as day. And then they start to go into their relationship, and it's like they forget all of those things.
I might have really healthy boundaries in one relationship and have no boundaries in another.
That's a good point.
It's just
finding that balance.
Yeah, it's how you connect with independent people and how you've experienced transference with them, or
that's it.
Whatever you're going through in your life at that time. But becoming aware of it is the key to set those healthy limits.
Right.
And let your yeses be yeses and your nos be nos, meaning don't volunteer yourself for things that you cannot do because it would overwhelm you.
Right.
And it's okay to say yes to other people to help them, as long as you're not saying no to yourself.
That's it.
Like, no to myself, I don't get to take a nap, or no to myself, I don't get to do my notes today. I have to put them off.
Because I think the stigma is, and I do feel like our generation is really trying to crush this stigma away, is that it's selfish. That thinking about yourself first and you being number one is selfish. And I mean, I think that just needs to be said, because I think that I hear a lot of the generations say that, the older generations, that, you know, the millennials, that's all they think about is themselves, and that's why they're not in committed relationships, and they don't want to commit to, you know, buying a house, and they want to do all these things because they don't want to have kids, right? That's very selfish because it's always about them. And I'm thinking, I've always said it's more selfish to have a kid if you aren't going to take care of it, because now this kid relies on you and you're sitting over here being, you know, your own self, when in reality you're not being a parent. But the idea is that I think being selfish is necessary and important and should be prioritized. I think the word selfish needs to be
I would reframe it as self-nurturing and self-prioritizing.
Exactly, because society says it is selfish, but that's a word that I think has the bad stigma. So let's just throw it out and replace it with a word that allows us to feel self-aware and fulfilled and filling your own cup, like you were saying. Because again, you're putting on your mask first. You're taking care of yourself. And that other person is going to come in, and that's what makes it feel so great, is when that other person comes in, or a family member or a spouse or whatever, and gives you so much love that now your cup is runneth over, as they say. And that is the best place to be, because you're not relying, because one day they may be having a rough day, or they don't know that you're needing something and you're not speaking out about it. So now your cup is empty. Right?
But it comes down to this. Our responsibility is to meet our own needs.
Totally.
So those things that we look to others, or we might feel resentment towards them because they're not meeting our needs, we are the ones that have to fulfill those needs. Whether it is love, we have Even though life is more meaningful with connection, we can't have that strong connection with others if we're not feeding ourselves that love in the form of selfish choices, like giving myself permission to not go to that party, or permission to rest, or to do nothing for a day, to recharge my batteries.
That's it. And not feel like you have to be everything for everyone. I think that responsibility in life, especially in the United States, is there's so much emphasis on that, that you have to be this and you have to be that, and you've signed up for this and you've signed up for that. And it's like, wow, like a lot of these things are just, you didn't even give permission for those things to happen. These were just responsibilities put on you because of society, right?
Well, and also when you become aware, you empower yourself to say, you know what, when I agreed to this commitment, this is what I was aware of and this is what I could handle. But you can change your mind. Yeah. And you can say, well, this thing in my life has changed. So this task that I did for a while,
there's different factors in play.
I'm going to have to put that as a second priority, and I'm going to have to limit how much time I can dedicate to that. Right. And you have to be comfortable with yourself and practicing no when you can't.
That's so hard
accept
to
those
do.
Commitments.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Especially because if you've committed to something and now you have to, it's almost like you feel like you failed yourself or the other person.
Right. You don't want to
let
you
somebody
don't want to break
down.
Your commitment. You want to fulfill your obligations, but then you become aware and you have honest conversations.
Right. Or variables change. And now you're like, well, 6 months ago I was able to say yes to this, but now I'm in a position where I'm not. And if the person loves or cares about you, or you have a good working relationship with that person, they should understand that that is, the issue at hand, and they should give you grace, as we've said before, and patience to be like, listen, if you need to take a break on this, that's totally fine. Or if I need to replace you, that's fine too. And they shouldn't, put anger on that, or make you feel guilty. You know what I'm saying?
And also remembering, Christine, that everyone's journey is their own. So what they feel about it is going to be different than your experience. And when you set new limits and boundaries, the people that are used to you not having those are going to have some pushback. Sure. And they don't understand that you're just trying to...
Wait, say that again. Wait, hang on. Say it for the people in the back.
So when you set new boundaries and you become aware that you can't be mad at someone or resenting them for what you've been giving too much in the past, you have to take responsibility. And when you do that and you say, I wasn't aware of this problem that I had and not setting limits with my time, but this is all I'm currently able to give with this block of time.
Because people
they're going to give pushback.
Right, because people are accustomed to the way that things have been rolling for so long.
Before you had boundaries.
Correct.
And it's not that they're bad people. No. They were benefiting from your help. Sure. And it's not that you're abandoning them. It's just that you're trying to find that healthy balance. And don't be hateful when you're setting new boundaries. Be kind in how you communicate, but just very direct.
Yeah. But you're totally right, because that's, I think, where people they get shy in that regard, is because they start to create a boundary and they're like, oh no, but they don't like how people are reacting to that, because like you're right, they are getting some pushback because they're like, well, this entire time it's been like this,
so why is it different
now? And I think that's the thing, is that when you make a shift and a change in your life, not everyone's going to agree with you. In fact, most people probably won't. But don't let that affect what you know is right for you and what your next step should be. I mean, how many times do people say, oh, well, I'm moving here, or the biggest one, I'm dropping out of school, right? That's the biggest one in our generation. Or I've decided to start this career, I've decided to do this. And you'll get people that are, oh my God, that's so exciting for you. And I'm glad that I'm seeing more support these days. But I think also there are some people that are like, I just don't agree with your decision. And I really think that, when I left the university to go to community college because I was focusing on another career, I had so many people say, listen, just don't give up on school. Like, school should always be, you'll go back to it. And I felt like they were like projecting on me what they wanted to happen. And I never had an intention in my, adult life to go back to university. I was finishing up something, I was competing and I was getting ready to
You
win a world title.
Dreams.
Yeah.
Wow,
and
that's
so
amazing.
it was so different because then community college was what my schedule allowed me to do. And I was able to finish, a smaller degree there that these days I don't even use that degree, but to me it was exciting to be able to do that. And I won my world title that I was working so hard for. All of these things.
Yeah, you achieved your needs.
But these educators, who are incredible people that were trying to give me this insight that they felt that they had, that don't give up on school, don't do the, and all these things. And I feel like that happens in so many other areas, like in relationships. Oh, you should get a divorce, or or some advice people give about other people's kids and parenting and all. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about people and how they want to give their advice.
You have to be willing to expect that you will be faced with rejection, or you will be faced with well-meaning people who love you, and they will give you advice on what they think is best because
based on their
what works best for them, or
right.
what they think is best for you. And you just have to remove your ego from that when you're listening to their advice, but let it be in its own category. Give it its place by honoring your feelings and your educated opinion and your needs.
Totally.
Before you place the rank of that person's belief about your needs.
Yeah. Removing the ego. I hope you guys caught that.
It's easy to say that,
but
but it's
so easy
not
to say
easy
that.
to do.
No, not at all. But again, that we're saying that again for the people in the back, like removing the ego. Because even if you don't feel like you're an ego-driven person, there is still a subconscious ego that
We
gets
all
in the.
have
We all
one.
have it, and it gets in the way sometimes. And we'll say something, and it's like, where did that come from? And it's like, that's usually the ego sticking up for itself, saying, no, hang on. But really, that's not who you are. You have to separate.
If you step back and become more of an observer of your feelings and your thoughts, and then you can say, okay, well, where did this feeling come from?
Right.
Am I really bothered that so-and-so advised me to do this, or am I bothered because I care about what they think more than I care about my own needs? Or
Absolutely.
I just have some part of myself that I haven't healed.
Yeah.
And that is affecting how I am receiving this well-meaning advice from my cousin Joe.
Sure.
Because they're triggering something in me that I haven't healed.
Yes.
Awareness and emotional
That's
cues
it.
that people send out.
Absolutely. Yeah, reading the room. I love that phrase, reading the room. I mean, that's really it. Or just, like you said, body language if it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I like that too.
Oh my goodness.
This is a good conversation.
So
I really enjoy talking to you.
I love talking to you too. Seriously, like this is so great.
I think it's important to keep having these uncomfortable conversations in a medium that is respectful. And remember that we are all human, we are all one, and we have to have a compassionate ear and hold ourselves responsible for the type of media consumption that we experience every day, because we will drive ourselves crazy if we're not aware of the sources and putting those healthy limits.
Right, because we get consumed by it and we don't realize the lasting damage that it's actually doing. You just think you're consuming one little article here and there and here and there, and it piles up, and then eventually you just feel overwhelmed and you don't know why. That subconscious of constantly intaking all this media, it builds up fast.
It does. Yeah. And whether you choose to meditate, whether you decide to reach out and try therapy, there are a lot of teletherapy opportunities right now. I strongly recommend Parts Psychology. And if you want to read a book, Healing Amelia by Dr. Jane Orks is a good kind of case study example. Or you can find him on YouTube. But if he's all booked up, I know some other good therapists.
Love it. Oh, we're going to have to put all these links in the description.
But yeah, we'll put some links in there.
Absolutely.
Just be proactive about your mental health.
Yeah.
And don't wait until you're so depressed that you can't get out of bed to start doing something about it now.
Yes. Be preventative with intention.
Be preventative. Be proactive. And like Christine said, you're going to find what works for you.
Yeah. But be willing to do the research and know that it's a journey. Because I think that was my biggest issue, is I was always someone that was like, if I do this, this is the result, right? That's what they teach you in athletics.
We want instant gratification because our mind sees things on social media or television where it's, you do this, and then you see the before and after picture. You don't go through the whole journey of 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
And therapy is that way as well. You can't expect to instantly heal every part of you.
Well, it's just like working out. If you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, whatever it is, that's not going to happen. There's no quick pill you can take that's going to be healthy and effective and sustainable. You have to do the work. And the work on your body is the same work you're going to do on your mind. You're just going to find the different outlets that work for that. And I think that's the thing that I was looking for, is I was looking for the solution. And there's no solution. What you're creating is you're creating a journey. And you're creating habits, new habits in your life that allow you to now live like every single day I take a probiotic. That's a habit I created to help my body. But every single day I spend 5 to 10 minutes a day alone by myself, meditating or journaling or doing whatever it is. That's a habit I created for my mental health. Right. And so those little
like
things.
Taking your mental health vitamin every day.
Exactly. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And that's one part of therapy. I think that is an important reflective part. But in addition to that, like I said, I recommend that even if you are healthy and high functioning, that you do consider therapy, because it will help you with insight. It will help you with self-awareness. And
even just the relationships around you.
It'll help strengthen your relationships.
Yeah, maybe you're good, but maybe you have just a little strained relationship with a family member.
Especially in political season.
It's
something that happens.
Amen, yeah.
And instead of being afraid of it or shying away from it, talk to someone who is unbiased, like a mental health professional. Or a friend that you can trust.
Sure.
So...
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be part of this conversation.
I love it.
Look forward to the next one.
Thank you. This is amazing. Normally we hug. We're trying to maintain good social distancing rules.
We're trying as best we can.
We're trying so hard because we're dancers and we just want to hug. But, you know, we're going to be good and we're going to clink our glasses.
Cheers.
and on to the next. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your professional insight, but also thank you for your sharing your personal experiences with us and being able to just make it on a human level. You know what I'm saying? Because instead of making it all medical, I think that's what people get scared of when they talk to. Much more connected. Yes. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next time.